Thousands of young, bright Indian students come to Germany every year thinking that this is their passageway to a more stable, economically secure life. But then they find themselves sweeping the floors of an elderly people's home, carrying heavy loads in a warehouse or delivering food. And it breaks my heart when I see that, because oftentimes it's not just a part-time job and becomes kind of their full-time career. Oftentimes the next thing you hear is something like, yeah, it's so hard to even succeed in today's world, and it's just so unfair, everything was easier back in the days. And then the next thing you often hear is, actually, what am I even doing in Germany, sweeping floors? I should move back to India. And as a person who grew up in Germany but also has strong roots in India and loves both countries, I can really understand why you would want to move back. It's so beautiful here. I'm in Karnataka right now. Look at the landscape. Look at the hospitality. Look at the food. Look at the family. But if you're someone who actually wants to make it work, if you think you at least want to have a real shot at landing that dream job, at actually starting your own company, at actually building the dream project that's going to give you that economic security, you probably need to set up your mind a slight bit different from the majority of people who end up in that situation. So this video is for you. If you're up for that kind of fundamental mindset shift, it's going to take a little bit of time. We're going to go deep. We're going to try to get to the root of the problem. But I can guarantee you, if you understand how value in modern Western economies nowadays works, it's going to be so much easier for you to succeed. So I hope you watch this video till the end, and especially if you haven't even moved yet, maybe you can even watch this before you're moving, because this is probably one piece of information that you need to actually make that decision if you want to take that risk and jump into the unknown. So the first big problem that I see a lot with Indian students coming to Germany is that they often have this blind trust in the institutions. They think it's Germany, made in Germany, it's gotta work. And universities, unfortunately, don't fulfill that promise anymore. Of course, there's lots of different kinds of universities nowadays, so many of them are just not to be taken that seriously. It has become a business as well. But in general, the idea that if you get a degree from university, that's enough, you'll be fine, it's a thing of the past. You have to understand that those times are over. And we'll go deep in this video about why that is, so you understand exactly what you need to do differently now. But it's still so shocking to me that so many people are in that paradigm still. Even with people who want to study business, right? People who actually study how to innovate, they still often think that they need the degree to build a business. I often ask them, right, why are you even taking that degree right now? Why are you not working on a business idea? And they say, no, I have to still make the master's and then I will learn how to have a business idea. That's not how it works. You need the equipment, you need the knowledge, you need the information, but business is mostly about applying that in a unique way. So a lot of people are just optimizing their entire life around degrees, around the curriculum, and about what those universities kind of market to you, which is, if you take this degree, you'll be successful. So, and this is actually also something that applies to me. Often people become these hunters for badges, for status symbols, for pieces of paper, and they get one badge and they put it on their chest and they're like, now I can get the next badge, now I can impress someone else with that badge and get another badge. And I was on that ladder myself, literally going from bachelor's to master's and thinking, what's the next badge? I need to get the PhD. Only at the top of that ladder I realized these badges don't really mean much. They're just signals, they're proxies. But schooling is not education. Schooling is a means to education. It's a proxy and a signal for whether you're educated. But this is obviously an imperfect signal. So there's three big problems with that signal. The first one is, it's pretty easy to fake those badges. If you're part of the Indian student community in Germany, you know that a lot of people have faked them and have gotten admission in Germany because of a faked degree. if you've lived in India for any amount of time, you know that almost any degree, any certificate, any government certificate can be faked. It's just a matter of how much effort you're going to put into it. That's a huge problem. The second problem is that in school, people don't actually have a lot of motivation. The motivation is usually, I want to get that badge. That's not actually a strong motivation. It's like kind of a survival, mid-level motivation where, I need to make money. Yeah, everyone needs to make money, right? That's not the strongest motivation there is. And it doesn't have that passion, it doesn't have that love for the subject in it. So it doesn't have that ownership where you're like, this is my thing, this is my dream, my purpose. Most people don't have that attitude when they come to study in the library. And so that's also one reason that schooling often just doesn't push us to that level where we really improve, that we really learn something useful, because we're just, let me learn as much as I need to pass that exam. And part of that is obviously also because of the third problem which the universities and schooling systems has. It's that stuff is kind of outdated. And we know that deep inside. We know that most of the stuff is not actually going to be really useful for us. Maybe it's just like a thing that meant to keep us busy, that meant to kind of keep us engaged and not get lazy while we're just figuring out what we actually want to do in life. But it turns out most people don't really need the stuff that they learn in school. They might need the fundamental ideas, but ultimately it's about preparing you to actually combine all the stuff that has already been done before, which is something the school can teach you, in a new way, in a way where it's like, this has never been done before. This is something the school cannot teach you. And in order to be productive in any modern economy, you have to kind of demonstrate that you're able to do that. To show that you can combine things creatively and create something really new. Now, these three problems, right? The easiness to fake certificates, the lack of ownership and motivation, and the lack of relevance for the future of stuff that you learn in school, these three problems have always existed. It's nothing new. The big change is now that these problems have kind of been overcome by the modern era of information technology. In the past, we had to live with these problems. We had to deal with these problems. We just had to make the certificate harder to fake. We had to give people more interesting projects in school. We had to update the curriculum faster. We had to kind of solve these problems. Now this is not necessary anymore. Because now, knowledge is not only available in these institutions. It used to be the case that you had to go to a university, you had to be surrounded by a certain group of people to learn the frontier level in any skill. Those institutions used to really control and gateway access to information. And apart from those certificates that those institutions provided, there were no other ways to assess what a particular stranger is able to do. That was the main source of information. What else are you going to get? You can talk to him, okay. But this has changed now. And it has improved. It has improved. It's a better world because now information is free. Everyone can learn everything they want. And I personally could just do a couple of YouTube courses and spend a year building something on my own and taking some mentoring online. And I could just learn how to engineer AI applications. By the way, that's the reason I've taken a bit of a break from the channel. If you're tuning in after a little while, welcome back. I've been working on this project where I just built a AI language tutor. If you want to use it, it's actually going to be available very soon. I'll put the link in the description. And that's kind of incredible to me. I didn't really have that kind of background. I mean, my father's a doctor, mother is a doctor's assistant, and my whole family is kind of doctors, and they really wanted me to be a doctor or engineer, but I didn't want to be an engineer, so I studied philosophy and economics, and at some point I realized I actually like technology, but I haven't studied that stuff. So I started this journey of just learning things on my own, and it was very possible. It became ever more easy now with AI, where you have this personal tutor who teaches you everything and knows pretty much everything except for the stuff that was built 1 year ago or within the last year, and then you just Google. So at this point, the world has changed in a really good way that you don't need the certificate anymore to prove that you can do something. You can actually showcase it through those online media. You don't also need the certificate to learn something. You don't need the institution to learn something. You can learn it through those same channels. So bottom line here is that people just don't care that much anymore about your degree, because now they can assess your real skill, the real underlying value that you bring, not just the proxy. So they can actually ask this question and get a real answer, which is, what's your expertise? What are you actually good at? What can you create? What can you build? Show us. And if you can't show it, if you haven't built anything, if you can't showcase it, the assumption will be nothing. If you go to the job market and you say, I have 5 years of experience in logistics, supply chain management, and then they ask you, yeah, so show me something you've actually created. And in this field particularly, it might be very hard because it's kind of gated information. You worked for a company, you can't disclose that. If you can't really show them something truly impressive that you have built, you have created that, and your signature in there, your whole character is in there, your personality is in there, you breathe that stuff, then they're gonna say, yeah, probably he's just spent those 5 years fighting for badges. A lot of people do that in those institutions. So whenever someone asks me on Instagram, I get a lot of messages like this. They ask me, what is the way to get a job in Germany? Help me get a job. The first question immediately, I should make that in automation, you know. I should always ask, and I always do, what are you good at? What are you good at, man? Goes for women as well. What are you good at? And it's shocking to me how many people just don't have an answer to that. So many people just don't respond to that message because they're a bit overwhelmed by that. And those who do respond, most of them respond, I have this and that degree. I have MBA in, and I have 5 years experience of. So you see, the problem here is that these people have often just forgotten what it even means to be good at something. They don't know what it means. They think being good at something means having a degree. And so obviously those profiles will come across as uninspiring, uncreative, low on this kind of creative intelligence that you need to innovate. And now comes a exacerbating factor that makes this whole thing even worse, which is in that situation when you're coming with the wrong mindset and you're hitting the German reality and the job market just says, sorry, unfortunately, no. Leider, 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 keine Verfügbarkeit. What you're gonna do? You need to make money somehow, and oftentimes there's also quite a bit of expectation, especially from Indian families, to send some money back. You're in Germany, right? You should be making some good money over there. And then there's so much pressure from all sides that you just end up taking some kind of job. And there are lots of jobs. Just the jobs that most Germans just don't want to do. Menial labor, stuff that keeps you really busy, that's actually hard work. That's really energy draining sometimes. But with that kind of survival job, you don't have energy left at the end of the day to actually watch a video like this, for example, or actually apply the lessons and just start learning and building something and building your portfolio that actually proves what you can do. So with those kinds of demanding time schedules that so many Indian students have, I see them every day when I travel to my office on the train, they just don't get that growth in their career. And then there is this pressure to just find something, right? And there's also this Indian mentality of security overall, where they're driven then into jobs that actually don't fulfill them at all. And even in a warehouse job, if you just stay there and you show up to work, at some point they're gonna tell you, yeah, okay, you can be the manager. And then you become the manager of a warehouse. Nothing against that. That's just not at all what they were starting out as. That's not at all what they studied for. That's not at all what they had in mind when they came over. And so you really have to be aware of this need to chase security, to chase also approval from back home. And instead, you must always make sure that you chase greatness in that one field that you want to be great at. Which requires some reflection, obviously, knowing what that is, first of all. For many people, that's also the problem. They're actually studying something which they're not really passionate about. That means time to make a change. You can still study that degree, but you have to spend 5 hours, 3 hours every day on something that you actually want to do in life. So let's get to the solution here. I already hinted at it a few times. The way out of this predicament is you have to show that you're really, really good at something. Not just say it. Because words are cheap. In this field, everyone is distorting reality, let's just say, to a certain extent. Everyone. It's natural. That's part of life. So everyone is carefully looking and assessing and basically filtering all the stuff out that can be faked easily. And now degrees are kind of part of that. Everyone knows that there's lots of universities, lots of degrees where you can somehow get a degree without really doing any work. Everyone knows this. So they're looking for signals that cannot be faked. Signal that cannot be faked, that you're actually able to do something. And the best signal that cannot be faked is you did it. You actually did something. So the way to get out of this is to find projects that you can do. At this point, with your current skill set. Don't need another degree for that. Should be a well-scoped project though. It shouldn't be like, building the next Google, because it's something you can do in the next few months. So find a project, find something that you can actually do, that you really care about, because when you care about it from the inside, that's when you have that drive to actually do a really good job. That's when you love what you're doing and it becomes your baby. You want it to be as good as possible. And it really doesn't matter whether it ends up being used or it ends up being like sold to anyone. All that matters is that you give your best and that you make sure you complete it. You set that benchmark of where you want to be with this project, you set the destination, and you say, I'm not going to give up until I have reached it. Sometimes you might hit a real roadblock where you think, oh, actually this doesn't make sense, I need to go this way. Of course you can do that, but you must not leave it unfinished in any way. If there's a thought in your mind where it's like, I could still do this before it's actually good, you gotta keep going. Might be a lifelong project. I have had projects like that just keep going. Some of them make money, some of them don't. So with that kind of attitude, there's two real benefits. The first one is you are going to go to the frontier. If you set a clear target, you're going to hit a frontier, you're going to hit a boundary, you're going to hit that roadblock. But if you just say, I'm not going to give up, I'm going to make this work, you start hitting at that roadblock. You start finding a way to crack that stone. And that's where the real skill is shown, where the real value is created. Because to get to that roadblock is easy, everyone got there. You just have to walk the way that has already been built before. Just use the tools, just use the GitHub repositories that are out there, combine them. At some point you're going to hit a challenge where you're like, oh, none of these cool and smart people out there on the internet have actually talked about this. This is a problem I have to solve. You're only going to get there if you have that attitude. This is my baby, I'm going to make it work. I'm not going to give up. And the second benefit is that you actually learn about the real world, invariably. You cannot get stuck in these fake, hypothetical, illusionary success ladders where it's about getting the badge. When you have your own project, it actually solves a real problem, right? It needs to be something that somehow helps someone, even if that someone is just you. I've built projects where I'm the only user, but it does solve my problem. That's great, because then you are actually anchored in the real world. Not the case for many, many years, hours, weeks spent studying for a certain degree. So then the big question becomes, what should I build? What's the project that I can do? Well, one idea is think of all the problems that you have in your life. All of those can be projects. I have this problem that I take a lot of notes, right? To make a video like this, I often take many, many, many pages of notes on this phone, and they come at all times, and it's kind of hard to keep that organized. So existing tools already exist, Notion, Evernote, Google Notes, whatever you're using. But then for me, what's really important is to find a way to make it super easy to put the notes into the right place. Right now I have to go into my phone, I have to look at all these notes and find the right paragraph and find the right file and then write it down. It really sucks. So one project that I've been working on is just a voice interface into my note-taking system. It understands exactly how my note-taking system looks, where everything is, if everything is organized well, if it isn't, that actually reminds me. And then I just speak into it, it puts it in the right place. It's a problem I have. I still haven't built that project. If you're looking for a project, build that. Better ask yourself, what are your problems? Your problems might be, hey, actually I have already built stuff. And now that I've watched this video, almost to the end, you might say, oh, actually I'm not showing that enough yet. Like maybe you're a digital marketer or you're a software engineer and you're like, I have built cool stuff, but when the interview question comes, what have you built? I just talk about it. And as you know now, talk is not worth much. So I need to publish those websites. I need to somehow find a way to showcase my work. And the best way to do that is to build a personal website. Get a domain with your name. I was lucky enough to get achil.ai. And that's where I'm not yet publishing anything, but if I had to publish at this point, I would put all my projects there. And that's how you get a job very easily in AI, when you publish all the projects that you've worked on in AI on a website that's named yourname.ai. That means you really care. Make sure those projects are actually done, they're actually running. The code is maybe accessible even for people to look it up. Someone should quickly see what's cool about this. What does this project convey? So personal website is my go-to recommendation if you don't have an idea. Whatever field you're in, whatever you're building, if you're a farmer like these guys here planting areca nuts, just make a website where you display. Maybe make a video. Just make a video. That could be a nice video, a nice project. Make a video about what you stand for, what kind of skills you have. Make a video of you doing the thing that you want to do. If you're an architect, just put your models on that website. If you don't have that, right? If you're a digital marketer, for example, and you don't have a social presence, you don't have a channel with at least 15, 20 videos that kind of look good, no one's going to take you seriously. So in summary, the economy, the German economy or any other economy in the world just doesn't care about your dreams, doesn't care about your degrees. All it really cares about is, can you provide value? And you need to understand what value means. It means solving real problems. And that in turn means applying the knowledge that has already been used, that's already around, in a novel way, because all the other problems are already solved. And if you are just coming into interviews and said, I've studied this, I've studied that, it basically shows that you haven't understood that. It makes you look very weak in this economy, not morally weak, not as a human, but as an economic agent. The economy is ruthless in that way. Yeah, it doesn't really care about fairness in that way, where it's like, yeah, but you're coming from a different country and you have a different mentality and we should help. No. And so most Indians, they don't fail because they're stupid, in no way. They're oftentimes the smartest guys around and they're hardworking. Everyone knows this. But they fail because they're kind of waiting for permission, waiting for that institution to give them the right badge so they can move on, that they can start their business, they can actually build a social media presence or website. But no one is coming to give you that permission. This is your responsibility. And it's great if you're still watching this, because that means you've understood that to get that kind of impulse, you cannot trust the regular institutions. Those are the structures of the past, teaching the things of the past. If you want to really show the world and the economy that you're ready to tackle the future, you will have to find more niche sources of information. You'll have to find more niche mentors. You build a project and you hit that roadblock where the standard solutions don't work. You'll have to dig much deeper and become a real expert. Go to the frontier, find one online teacher somewhere who teaches how to solve this problem or an adjacent problem, so you can take that and apply it to the problem that you're actually facing. So I'm very grateful that you actually found me in this moment and trusted me enough to go to the end of this video. I have this vision for you, that you really build skills and you learn how to display that, how to showcase that. Because if you don't show proof, if you don't build something real and then show proof that you made that, you will end up building someone else's dream. There's many people like that, and they're becoming kind of a commodity in the economy. You want to decide. Do you want to be a student forever, or do you want to become a builder and a creator? And with that, I'm going to close this video. Thanks a lot for watching, and if you want to know more about how I can maybe even help you become a mentor for you, there's a link in the description where you can find out more about my coaching. I'm not doing too much coaching in 2026 because I'm focusing on that language learning application I told you about, so that link will also be in the description. Thanks a lot, and good night from beautiful Alandur, Karnataka. Bye-bye.